Hi, Bjorn. How are you? Yeah. Like most people, I guess. At least most people on this side of the world. Other side, just now getting up, preparing for their Friday, I guess. Harold, John, how you guys doing? Hey, Ian, Axel. Remy being bearish. Remy just likes to come in and when the price is down, he's bearish. When it's up, he's bullish. It's like nothing really to gain from his insightful posts, I guess, in that respect. Uh, anyway, following the same pattern as usual. So, hey, Merrick, how are you? All right, guys, it's 3 on the dot here. I'm going to give it another minute or so, let some more people roll in, and then we'll kick it off. If anybody has a question they want to shoot out in the meantime, feel free. If it's a juicy one, I'll wait till we get into the AMA to answer it so that more people can hear that answer. But if it's something that will probably be asked a million times anyway, or something that isn't so juicy, then I'll just answer it now. Hey, Axel, have a meeting here at 4, actually. That's going to last till probably about 5. Then I have a call from 5 to 5:30, and then possibly another call between 5:30 and 6, but somewhere around 6. Hopefully, I should be free. So in the funding, so Bjorn, I'll answer this again during the AMA because I'm sure somebody's going to ask it. But in terms of funding, I've been in discussion still with these guys in Brazil, and now we have until next Friday to sign an MOU. That MOU, or memorandum of understanding, is going to outline a bit more concretely what their commitment is and when it's flowing in. So we're drafting that MOU right now. I hope to get that to them today. Maybe we don't get it to them till over the weekend or on Monday at the latest, but they will get that MOU, and then we will discuss it probably Wednesday next week. So moving forward, but definitely focusing more attention on these guys in Brazil right now, just to get them over the finish line. Thanks, Jeff Fuel. Yeah, I don't think I've done one of these from a plane yet, but yeah, I'm generally the guy who pays the $9.95 for 2 hours worth of shitty internet access on planes. So I don't know. One time I was on a business. Even one time I was on a business flight. I think it was Hong Kong to was it Hong Kong to Tokyo? I don't remember, but I had to pay for internet access. Ridiculous. Hey, Uros, how are you? Hey, Kevin, how did the chat with the bank go? Well, we chatted, but no real feedback. Still waiting on compliance. So compliance, I think we did come up in the risk meeting yesterday, but no real feedback from compliance yet. Though I would expect something at the very latest end of next week. Mainly because last time it took them 2 weeks. If we take out vacation, it took them 2 weeks to respond. And our main representative at the bank is definitely on the case. She's digging in with her compliance team. She knows we need a response as soon as possible. So it's getting work done. Entire session. Look at you. All right, so let's kick it off here, guys. We're about 3 minutes after 3 here locally. And for those of you who've never seen the show, I'm Kevin Metro. Jesus Christ, look at this. Long week, guys. I'm Kevin Murcko, CEO here at CoinMetro, and we do this little Ask Me Anything. We call it This Week in Crypto, mainly because the first 10 minutes of the session or so, I go through a bunch of news articles that were curated by our elite Telegram group over the past 7 days, and I give an opinion on each of those little pieces of news. Usually try to keep it to 1 minute or less. We then do a quick Kevin Explains Crypto, where I usually have some type of word or phrase that relates to crypto in some way, shape, or form, and I explain what it means. Easy as that. Then we get into a live Q&A here on YouTube, and we have some Reddit questions over the last week as well that have been curated on Reddit, and I go through and I try to answer those as well if time permits. So yeah, Kevin Metro. So here we go. Let's start with those market news. There's 10 of them. Let's start with number one. Makes sense, don't you think? Number one on the list of 10, Binance launches lending platform with initial BNB and Tether lending products. Yeah, we all saw this. Look, Binance, now you can look at this two different ways. They also launched something, I don't know if we have a story on this one, called Binance X, which is a platform for developers to develop products. So what I can tell you now, there's two things that happen when large companies start to push out lots of products. Two reasons for that. Either they just have a lot of money to spend on research development and they're testing things and see how spending money to see how things go, or they are starting to lose revenue and lose it drastically, and they're looking for ways to basically, hoist up or put a nice platform pedestal underneath their current earnings. So I do think that Binance is starting to lose some revenue for sure. The fact that lending, okay, great. So yeah, you can place some funds there. They give an interest. So that's like staking, so to speak. Again, they're doing it on their unregulated platform, obviously, because this would require more than likely some type of regulation, considering the fact the words they use to describe the platform, lending, for example. So yeah, not a surprise, but I think there's some shakeups going on in Binance. That's for sure, because they're releasing lots of different things that they kind of already had in their ecosystem, just under different cover. This Binance X is kind of a combination of their labs, their incubator, and their launchpad all rolled into one. They've kind of already had the product. They just released it, kind of subdivided, released under a different name. And here, when it comes to lending, they already have margin trading, which is kind of lending already. So again, I don't know, but it looks to me like they're grasping at straws for a certain reason. All right, number two on the list of 10, Bitcoin's reported market dominance approaching 70%, but in reality, it's above 90. Yeah, everybody has their everybody speculates. Like these guys at CoinMetrics. I don't know if this is a CoinMetrics article, but CoinMetrics came out with a bunch of different metrics the other day. Some of them make no sense, right? They have like this true market cap metric where they say that they don't look at the value of Bitcoin for every Bitcoin in existence. What they do is they look to see the last time the Bitcoin moved, and whatever the price was on that date, that's the value of the Bitcoin in that wallet, which is asinine. Because obviously, if that Bitcoin can't move, then it's worthless. And if it can move, it's valued at whatever the value of today is. Because if it moves today, that's what it's worth. Stupid metric. Here, so lots of people take lots of data and they just make up, they get their own ideas and they just assume what this may or may not mean. So dominance is definitely large. That's for sure. Is it 90? I don't know. You know why? Because Bitcoin is the most traded asset in crypto, which also means it's the most manipulated, which also means it's the most wash traded, which also means it's the most, has the most fake volume as well. So I think it's high. I don't have any reason to believe it's actually over that stated 70%, which is also ridiculous in terms of market saturation for one asset. I don't think it's near 90%. I do think, though, that the vast majority of that volume is not real. And when it comes to altcoins, I think the percentage of volume on altcoins being real is probably larger in and of the whole altcoin market than Bitcoin, because of the fact Bitcoin's the most traded. Number 3 on the list of 10, Peter Schiff, Bitcoin again failed the safe haven test. Yeah, well, Peter Schiff's a gold bug, and gold bugs are, by the very virtue of being a gold bug, a bit stupid. And I'll give you the story I gave one other time. Never, not just one other time. I think I've given this story 1,000 times. But my grandfather bought gold, was buying gold actively in the 80s. His average price during a couple of years was about $890. I bought gold 25 years later in 2005 for under $250. So you can do the math all you want, but when you take the inflation just in the US during the 80s, during the yuppie years of the 80s, and you combine that with the recession of the 90s, and then you figure out that in 2005, I paid almost as little as a quarter of the price that my grandfather paid. That'll tell you it's not a safe haven at all. It's actually a safe haven for fools. The term fool's gold doesn't necessarily mean gold that is fake. It means people that actually put all their money into gold, because the biggest idea behind gold, beside of it being a store of value and beside of it being a safe haven, is the fact that if all shit hits the fan, like we go into Armageddon, somehow hoarding a bunch of gold is going to be a good idea. Because obviously when you're starving in the street, people are, shooting you to steal your stuff. Having a bunch of gold in your basement is going to make a difference. No, having a bunch of ammunition and a bunch of tuna fishing cans would probably make you the king of the hill, not a bunch of gold. So, Peter Schiff is going to stick by his guns. He's probably paid for the most part to be a gold bug, I hope. Gold is not the best store of value. Gold does not store value well. Gold is very hard to transport. Digital forms of gold have never really taken off. And physical gold is a pain in the ass. That doesn't mean that Bitcoin is a better store of value. It's not. There are very few decent stores of value on this planet. And I don't think gold or Bitcoin are one of them. But Peter Schiff always likes, every time Bitcoin falls in price or is volatile, Peter Schiff comes out with some lame comment. And every time it goes up in price, Pompliano comes out with another stupid comment on the Bitcoin side. So at the end of the day, I think they're kind of made for each other, to be honest. Peter and Anthony should kind of take a week in Hawaii together or something, at a nice villa, and maybe romance will ensue. Number 4 on the list of 10, owning one Bitcoin will increasingly become a big deal. Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong. Sure, if you buy into the fact that scarcity alone will increase the value of an asset from where it is today, and that the value where it is today hasn't already priced in the scarcity. That's a hard thing to speculate, right? Obviously, scarcity in any market should mean, as long as there's demand, that price increases. But that doesn't mean that demand will always increase. That's ridiculous. Demand at some point falters. The question is, has demand already gotten to the point where it faltered? It faltered at 20K. Will it ever go beyond 20K? Again, just because there's 21 million of these things ever to be mined does not mean value increases exponentially over time. It doesn't. Not to mention the fact that you can split it out to 18 decimal places. So you may think you have 21 million Bitcoin. In reality, a Satoshi is probably a better level of the amount of scarcity that actually exists, considering the buying power of everybody on the planet is much lower than the buying power of Switzerland, New York City, or San Francisco. Number 5 on the list of 10, Sierra Leone gets Africa's first blockchain national digital ID system. Clap, clap, clap for Sierra Leone. Estonia, we got one of those. It's good. Look, Africa's got a lot of systemic issues. There's a lot of people that don't even have ID, that they don't even know what their birth names were. And that's not just Africa. A lot of countries went through that. That happened in the US. That's happened everywhere in the world. That's happened in Europe. That's happened in the UK. When you go back to the origins of any of these systems, there were flaws, and Africa is just now starting to kind of deal with some of those flaws. So good on them. Shows that there's definitely some real use cases for blockchain. I'll shout out to my friend Nouriel Rubini on that one. Maybe he should read that article. I'm sure he tried to tear it apart. I don't know if he'd be able to, but he'd give it a shot. Number 6 on the list of 10, BitMEX Insurance Fund now holds more than 0.15% of all BTC. That's probably a good thing, since BitMEX does about 300% more volume than the entire Bitcoin market on a daily basis. That doesn't. I would have expected it to be higher, to be quite honest. Look, I don't know what they use that insurance fund for. I mean, I guess taking money from people that don't know how to trade, they definitely aren't paying those guys back. So I assume it's for just some, outage or outright fraud. I don't know. But if it's outright fraud, they're not going to pay from their own. The point of having an insurance fund, listen, and this is to you, Binance, and this is to you, BitMEX. The only way you can truly set up an insurance fund is through a third party. If you are the insurance fund and you are the one that is causing the issue where people need to come and get insurance, you're probably not paying because you're the one that defrauded them initially. So, by the way, guys, set up your insurance funds with a third party, right? Before you do that, no one with a brain, or maybe even a quarter of a brain, is going to trust that if shit really hits the fan, you pay, because obviously you're the one controlling the funds. So that's just stupid. So number 7 on a list of 10, Parsec Research finds Bitcoin wealth is almost 50 times more concentrated than global wealth. Parsec, woohoo! I think it's the first time they made it into our little news roundup here. And on number 7, not so bad, not 8, 9, or 10. That's already like 30% better than the worst. That's pretty good for the first time. So yeah, it was an interesting research story. I think we talked about this before, and everybody talks about that. The whole reason behind Bitcoin, right? Read the white paper, guys. Read the 9-page white paper that Satoshi put out. And that wasn't Craig Wright, in case he ever listens to this. But read that white paper, and you'll see that it was supposed to democratize, finance. It was supposed to democratize. It wasn't supposed to make it worse, right? And here we find that Bitcoin actually, when you think about, the top 1%, well, any people owning Bitcoin, it actually makes that divide between, classes extremely, extremely larger than actually the traditional market. So we've definitely failed on that point when it comes to democratizing the world of money. Hopefully, maybe we can rectify that in the future. But we failed on that so far, that's for sure. Number 8. On list 10, Portugal tax authority, Bitcoin trading and payments are tax-free. That's from 2016, so not news. And it's VAT, guys. So it's VAT, and when you make money buying and selling crypto, you don't pay income tax on that. However, if you make money indirectly from crypto, you're paying tax. And this law in Portugal is from 2016. And VAT tax is great, guys. But what happens when you spend your Bitcoin? Yeah, you're going out, you want to buy a luxury item, and you're like, I'm using my Bitcoin because it's VAT free, And you go to, I don't know, some store, and you buy, a nice watch or a nice leather handbag for your missus, whatever you buy, right? And you say, and you're like, I saved 20% on VAT. I'm awesome. And then the next day you look at Bitcoin price and it's up, or 3 days later you look at Bitcoin price, it's up 27%. You save 20% on that. Yay. So again, you always lose things when countries make tax cuts. There's always a loss on the other side, that's for sure. So here, not a big deal, guys, but it's been around for 3 years, so not news. Number 9 on list 10, political group launches ICO to support U.S. House candidate. Yeah, well, we talked about the democratization of money when we talk about Bitcoin. Right now, we're talking about ICOs are supposed to democratize capital fundraising, and now we're using the ICO moniker to fundraise for a leader in government, centralized government, very centralized government. Anyway, I'm just going to move on. I don't even know what to say about that one. All I could say is that I guess from the good side, you could say, oh, look, these guys are fundraising using an ICO model. That means that it's legitimate. And then from the bad side, you could say there's everything wrong with an ICO. So I don't really know what side of the fence is on that one is. But anyway, I'm going to move on. Number 10 on the list of 10, Telegram's Gram token could go live in October after $1.7 billion ICO. Could be the 10th biggest crypto according to market cap. That's if it holds its price. Now, most guys that got in early, that 1.7, right, wasn't really an ICO because it was much more akin to an IPO. There were allocations all around the world. Vast majority was bought up by private allocations between VCs and fund to funds. And they were given 4 to 5, I think 400% on average discounts. So that price is going to tank. They were vested, that's for sure. But I think some of that vesting might be close to coming to an end. So I don't think that market cap will stick around for long. There'll probably be a lot of retail interest at first, just because it's Telegram. But, that 1.7 billion, I don't know what they spent that on. I think if I go back through the last year or so of Telegram and I look at all the updates I get about what they've done, they haven't done much with 1.7 billion. So it's interesting to see what exactly, once they do launch this, their crypto what are their token, what do they tie to it, what development have they been secretly working on that's going to change the way we all use Telegram and make it into, the second WeChat. All right, guys, we'll do a quick Kevin explains crypto here. In a second. Yeah, Kevin explains crypto. So this week's Kevin explains crypto term, network effect. So this is actually cool. And I heard about the network effect, I think, in the mid 90s. So at some point, I wouldn't say I was trying to become a programmer, but I had learned, HTML and some PHP and a few other things, and I was dabbling. I'd never been a programmer, but I knew enough to kind of dabble around. And at that time, I think I had read, it was either in a book, it probably was, it definitely wasn't on the internet, that's for sure, but read about Robert Metcalfe. So Robert Metcalfe, who worked at Xerox at the time, this is back in, I think, 1980, devised something on how to value networks, which was eventually called Metcalfe's Law. And it basically said that the value of a network depends on the size of the network, meaning that every new user that comes onto that network gives an additional value to every old user that exists on that network. Bigger the network, the more it's worth, right? The way you apply that to cryptocurrency is that the more the network grows, the more utility is applied to that network, right? So the more people accepting, the more people holding, and the more people, spending crypto, the more utility that network has, the more value is instilled in the network. Thus, the higher the price of the crypto will go over time. That's basically it. So it's a combination of Metcalfe's Law, Robert Metcalfe, 1980, and combining it with a way to value crypto, right? Because you can value it based on market price, fair value in terms of market price, or you can value it based on trying to give a value to the underlying network. So that's what it means. All right, so let's jump into live Q&A. Let's see here. Let me see what we got here on ding, 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 ding. What's your opinion on the current altcoin Bitcoin market? Do you see another bull run happening in the future? That's from Jet Fuel. There always will be additional bull runs, quote unquote, in any market. Doesn't matter the market. You can't have a market that's always bearish, and you can't have a market that's always bullish, and you can't have a market that always goes sideways. None of those create a market. A market is created by ebb and flows. That means you're going to have, a sustained bull market. You're going to have sustained bear markets. You're going to have ranging markets, but you can't have a market with just one. So from that aspect, I would say, yes, there will be right now. And since we hit all-time highs, we have been in a bearish market. We have not come out of that bearish market, though we are definitely within, it's still, what Bitcoins is specifically inside of bullish trend. And that bullish trend is still there, even though right now we're probably in, if you talk about from a day trading perspective, we're in a very ranging market. We don't really have a direction right now. But the overall direction, if you look at a chart and span all the way back to when Bitcoin first traded, is bearish, 100%. That's just looking at the current trend. Doesn't mean the entire market's always been bearish. It means the trend from inception till today is bearish. We hit an all-time high. We fell from that all-time high, and we've only retraced roughly about 70% of that all-time high, meaning that we're in a bearish trend. So you can have micro trends and macro trends inside of long-term trends, blah, 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 blah. So will another bullish run come? Yes, 100%. There's no way it couldn't. When it will come, that's the question, right? This is why knowing when to get in and out of trades, when to take losses, how to sit on your hands, and how to structure a portfolio where your maximum risk percentage doesn't hurt you when you're in long-term corrections is the way that traders become profitable, not from picking a side. Anybody, the great thing about being a trader is you can only be, you can only be wrong 50% of the time. Now, maybe you can be wrong 100% of the time. You can only say, if you say, bull or bearish, you're either right or wrong, right? So if you're 50%, it's a coin flip. Not really, because coin flip's not 50-50 either. I don't know if anybody here studies statistics, but that was an interesting course. And even a coin flip isn't 50-50. My point is to say that, it's easy. You can throw a dart at a dartboard and be profitable in trading. And I've said that before. You do not need to know where the market is going. You simply need to know how to control your risk. That's it. So yes, bull market will come. If I had to give my best guess as to when that will happen, what we've seen now, what's funny is when Bitcoin was correlating 100% to altcoins, everybody's like, I don't like this correlation. Correlation's ridiculous. Well, now that we're starting to see a decoupling of that correlation, everybody wishes it was back, at least those holding altcoin portfolios. So it's a good thing that there's a decoupling. It is step one of many steps to actually have a true and transparent and mature market. So if this decoupling continues, we will need to see altcoins taking over a bigger percentage of the market. How do we see that happen? Well, more, let's say, long-term projects and more businesses coming in with altcoins and alt tokens and blah, 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 whether it be utility or security in nature, bringing in value into the market. We need to pull that 70% dominance figure down. Not that we need to do it. It will happen. It is inevitable. It's never going to, a market can't sustain itself like that. So I think we probably have it. We've probably seen most of the bottoms we're going to see in terms of altcoins. Now that doesn't mean, I mean, in the market as a whole, in terms of market cap, we've probably seen most of the bottom. Specific tokens can definitely keep falling, that's for sure, but we've probably seen more or less a bottom. Now the question is what propels us forward? Now, if you're talking about a more mature market, you're going to talk about catalysts. We need catalysts to push the market forward. We need true value. We need value to come into this market. We need businesses to actually start making money. We need businesses to actually start doing what they say they're going to do, and we need to weed out all the shit. And the shit filter's already started. It's going to take, months, maybe a year more for most of that shit to be filtered out. And I'm not just talking about tokens. I'm talking about businesses in the sector. I'm talking about exchanges. I'm talking about all types of things that are going to go under and fail. And we'll have a more cleaner market because of that. And then I think at that point, we can start to see a real bull market. A real bull market is something that can be sustained over time. It's not something that lasts 6 months, 9 months, or a year. It's something that lasts a decade. That's a real bull market. What's your opinion on the any development news? So everybody's focused on TAM. I think I've said that already. That's the first thing that's going to come out, followed by getting the utility of XCM fully intertwined into the ecosystem, followed by the API, followed by probably website, and then followed by margin posting. Then followed by a rather unique feature that's going to tie many of those features into one very usable, user-friendly interface for people to earn passive income. So all that stuff is coming. Generally, we are on target for TRAM. I see you got me saying TAM because you wrote TAM. We're on target for TRAM, and we're on target for that API. Website might take a little longer than discussed. I mentioned 2 weeks ago that there was a website put together, and I threw it in the trash. I didn't like it. We now are about 90% complete on the newer mockup. Once the mockup is complete, we'll release it. You guys can have a look, give us some of your feedback inside of Telegram. But because we have a limited resource in terms of front end and to get that website up, we want to get TRAM done first. So the actual development on the website isn't going to happen until TRAM's live. So I think we're about 2 weeks away from that now, 2 to 3 weeks, I think, if I remember our timeline correctly. How is the Montenegro project? Any foreseeable problems that will derail the project? There's always foreseeable problems, no matter how confident you are in this world. And I can tell you this from firsthand, shit always happens, right? If you plan for all the shit you can possibly think of that'll happen, other shit will still happen. If you plan for that shit, other shit will still happen. That's just the way that's the way the world works. You don't really figure that out till like your mid-30s, but once you get there, you figure it out and you go, man, what's up with this? Like, that's why Murphy's Law was created. You don't know about Murphy's Law? Google it. Murphy's Law basically says if shit can happen, shit will happen. And that's basically the way life works. So when it comes to Montenegro, so August 28th, which was 2 days ago, the redacted version of the sandbox framework that we have been working on with the Montenegro CMA was adopted into their bylaws. So the sandbox is now legal and up and ready to roll. We are waiting on a finalized application to come through from the CMA, probably early next week, and CoinMetro will begin to submit its application to get into an MTF sandbox in Montenegro. I will be in Montenegro on the 16th and 17th for a government forum where I'll be sitting down with the Prime Minister, the head of the central bank, the head of the CMA, and a few other individuals. And one of the major topics there will be about the sandbox. So I suspect around those dates, more or less too, is probably when we're going to be submitting our application. So everything moving forward as planned with Montenegro. To be honest, I don't really see any major speed bumps. I think most speed bumps that'll happen with Montenegro will be more about getting the sandbox, once we're in the sandbox, getting through and actually going from sandbox to licensing. That's where I can see a few hiccups that can possibly happen. But that's 6 to 12 months away. So that doesn't mean we shouldn't plan for it, and we are, but it's definitely not something that's going to affect us, at least getting into the sandbox and actually starting the ball rolling. Yeah, coin flips are not 50-50. Yeah, just seriously, Google that one too. It's rather interesting. It just goes to show you that when it comes to probability and statistics, what most people believe to be true is false. Right? There's almost nothing in the world that's a 50-50 split. Almost nothing. Okay, so I'm going to jump on some Reddit questions because I actually read through them. How is the progress of the CSD? Have you assembled the team? Yeah. So before I get to Reddit, then, so in terms of the CSD, so we have now a full plan for low and high level architecture, which means the plan for how this thing is going to be built based on the underlying pieces of software that are going to be used, hardware, who's going to build what, how it's going to connect to other services, et cetera, et cetera. So the high and low level architecture is basically done. In terms of the team, yes, we now have a team, I think, of 5 people. Very, very senior individuals. Everybody on this team has at least probably 15 to 20 years experience in their related field. So it's not a young team. It is a team that has experience in cryptography. It's a team that has experience in high throughput systems, meaning systems that can handle a lot of transaction load. Has teams that have experience in financial sector, building financial ecosystems, et cetera. So that's done. We're ready to roll on that. We're actually, I think next Monday, someone from the team, the chief architect is going to come into town. We're going to sit down with him and we're going to basically create the entire scope of the project, timelines, all that stuff based on the high and low level architecture. When it comes to funding, as I said, from Brazil, we finally had a call with the larger group of investors. I'm going to say might have been Friday. It was about 1:30 a.m. my time. So about 1:32 a.m. had a call. That call was, I was actually during this week. I'm thinking today's Monday for some reason, just a little backwards. It might have been Wednesday then. It was at some point this week we had a call. It was 2 a.m., like I said. And we went ahead and now we're drafting an MOU to send to them so we can get everything on paper, concretely on paper. But yeah, in terms of moving along, in terms of fundraising, moving along as well. Yeah. So the bald old guys are back. Yeah. The bald guys are back in town. And there's a song like doesn't say bald guys. We should make it though. The bald guys are back in town. You ever heard that song? Anyway, maybe I should sing that on YouTube. I'd probably get like 1 billion hits. We probably wouldn't even need to fundraise after that. Is the Montenegro Sandbox project planned to be put into motion in other countries? Yes, it is planned. Montenegro Sandbox is based on MiFID II, so it's based on EU regulation. We would like to port that over into the EU, maybe into Estonia, maybe into Lithuania. Montenegro is step 1. We're also looking, obviously, at Brazil. They are looking to have a sandbox regime in 2020, though we may be looking to sidestep the sandbox in Brazil and go straight to licensing. All depends on who we can hook up with in Brazil. The team that we're dealing with for the fundraising has connections into some of the biggest banks, investment banks, and into the incumbent CSD and stock market. So it's possible that we won't even need to wait for the sandbox in Brazil. But yes, it is a first step. It's not where we're going to end up. We're not saying that we want to launch this thing in Montenegro and stay in Montenegro and do everything from Montenegro. It's a very global scale with regional pieces in many different parts of the world. Yeah, actually, the panel. I don't know if the prime minister's on the panel. I think the governor of the Bank of Montenegro, as well as the CMA president, are on the panel, having a dinner with the prime minister. Actually, so it's actually a private dinner with some of the speakers, prime minister, and a few other people. Yep, Africa as well. So we actually, and I can't say exactly who this is, but a prince from Africa is actually someone we've been talking to get into Africa. So he has access to several different countries in Africa and directly to the incumbents. So it's also something, but once we get basically our MVP established in the sandbox, it's one of the first places we're going to look. USD progress. Well, USD is a pain in the ass. It's not getting easier. We're working on it. From the provider we have right now that has the other 25 currencies, they're very close to getting USD. It's going to be another step to get it into our own ecosystem because of crypto, unfortunately. But we're working on getting that done. In terms of USD, just pairings, once we mentioned Cement DAO, I think before on this program, and we started integration on their test net. Once we get them into our main net, that's basically an aggregate USD stablecoin. It's an aggregation of multiple USD stablecoins, meaning people can deposit all types of different USD stablecoins, which then get converted to this mixed token, which then gets traded against as a USD stablecoin on our platform. So that'll give us the ability to list some USD-based assets and allow withdrawability inside this mixed token. However, USD as fiat, yeah, it's going to take a bit longer. I think it's hard to estimate because initially it was going to be offered right from the get-go. Then that bank backed out, and now there's another bank that's about to offer USD into the overall platform we're going to be using, or through the overall EMI that's supporting us on this. But we need to get secondary approval for us, and that secondary approval can't happen until they get their primary approval. Yeah, not the Nigerian prince. No. And I met this guy. He's legitimate. Okay, let me get on Reddit, guys, just for a second. So XM Takeover. Hi, Kevin. My brother introduced me to CoinMetro and has recently moved to Japan. It's his birthday soon, and I've been trying to get a CoinMetro T-shirt for him before mid-September. Would it be possible? CoinMetro T-shirt. Highly valuable pieces of cotton. These things. I have basically a worldwide monopoly on these things right now. Look, send me an email. My email is pretty easy. It's my first name at coinmetro.com. So send me an email if you're listening. Hopefully you're listening, and I'll see what I can do for you. Number 2, Pop-Tarts 10. What are the different ways CoinMetro will make money? I'm just trying to figure out how CM will sustain itself in the future. So this is one of the major points on what we talk to investors about all the time. The exchange-based business, exchange-only business is a zero profitable business in the next 2 years, next year and a half, 2 years, mainly because compliance costs and profitability, so, unprofitable, basically. So that's why we have all these different services. That's why, margin trading, we make money on allowing people to use our capital to trade with. And we make substantially more money doing that than we do on the actual exchange. Then when you bring in things like TRAM, which is our kind of managed accounts for crypto, those TRAM traders are only allowed to trade on margin. So again, inducing more volume on margin, inducing the need for more margin to trade with, inducing more profitability, more fees towards CoinMetro. Then when you talk about our CoinMetro Direct platform, which is the kind of the reiteration of the CoinMetro, the ICO Express, we're talking about listing fees. We're talking about getting a cut of things that raise on that platform. We're also talking about adding new instruments, which obviously add more liquidity back into the platform. Then when you talk about merchant services coming down the line as well, when we talk about, I just talked about something, we have a rather innovative idea for how to link margin posting, as well as, let's say, portfolios, trams, and some type of reoccurring buying mechanism, which again, all pushes most of those funds through the tram, which is, again, margin trading. So when it comes to trading, margin is definitely something where we make more money than we make anywhere else. And we are looking to, and we will launch products that don't necessarily have to do with trading. Like I said, merchant capabilities. We've been in discussions with a few different places to do that as well. That's going to come after we get all the products basically listed in our white paper out and in the market. We will start looking at these things, but we will expand and constantly expand the amount of services that we offer to our clients. And like I said, even in the beginning, the exchange in and of itself was never viewed as the vehicle to make us profitable. It is simply the engine that kind of runs the rest of the ecosystem. Okay. Stubble and Stout on YouTube asking, how's the debit card status? Yeah, still waiting on the guidelines so we can actually do the design for the cards. It's progressing in the background. I mentioned last week I was going to have a call this week with the company that's behind the debit card. Unfortunately, I haven't had that call yet. They've been doing some audit or something like that on their side, and they've just been swamped. So it may happen this weekend, if not early next week. But they're definitely making progress on all fronts. Just on our side, we're not really involved until the last step, and that last step is about designing the card, implementing it on our side, et cetera. So it's definitely moving along. Initially we were told 8 to 12 weeks. I think that was roughly 7 weeks ago. So we're getting close to when the program should be greenlit on the other side, and then it's about us getting through the design process, which can take a few weeks as well. So still waiting on those. I'm going to send another message over to these guys asking again for that for that design layout and the APIs so that we can have a look at them, because I still don't have that documentation. Harold asking if we can add in DigiID as an authentication method. Yeah, look, I think eventually we're going to add Google and other things as well. Agrello was simply the first because we worked on something else with Agrello and they asked us if we'd be willing to add it. So we added it. But yeah, it's possible we could add DigiID. I need to reach out back to those guys, have a call, and see where we can work together, not just on a listing, but what else we could possibly work together on. So it's something that definitely needs to be done. Kevin, how do you generally feel overall the progress in CM? By the way, very appreciative of your regular AMA. Very appreciative that you come and listen to me talk rubbish, every week. I appreciate that as well. So yeah, I've been asked this a few times. I think this is generally a question that comes up every time we don't have like release after release after release, like when there's like this stagnant water where people don't generally see what's going on behind the scenes. And I'll give you the same answer I always give. Maybe it's not verbatim, but it's the same answer. And that's anything in life can always be done better, right? Nothing's perfect. Striving for perfection is kind of always a losing battle, right? So no matter how good you are at doing something, no matter how much success you've seen, you can always do it better. So obviously, there's definitely things that I wish we would have done better. I wish I would have done better. I wish I would have instructed others to do better. But I think there's many things that we've done that might not be perfect, but I think we did quite well under the circumstances how they were done. Meaning, we started off with a development team that didn't know each other, that never worked together, that were on different sides of the world, had language barriers, and we fought through all that stuff, and it took time. But at the end of the day, I think now we definitely have a pretty fine-tuned system. We have a system built on a small team where we could definitely use more and more people on that team, but we've been able to push these deadlines out recently without the need for spending additional money and without the need for stopping in any other major aspect of the business. We still do 24/7 customer support. We're still here every Friday with the AMA. We're still doing round-the-clock development. We're still rolling out products, et cetera. I think that's pretty exceptional. And I'm not saying we're the only ones to do that, but I'm saying that that's something that I think that gets overlooked. So my overall picture is, like I said, I think I rated us a B last time, right? If I had to, I think initially, the first couple of weeks or whatever, that we might have had an F, then we got a D. Then we got up to like the C area where it was like, well, we're getting things done, but every time we're missing a deadline, we're missing this, we're missing that. Too many bugs are getting through our process, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we're roughly at the B stage right now, right? We still have a bit to go to get into that, 8, 9, 10 area where we're hitting more of those check boxes, but we're getting close and we're constantly improving. So I'd say we're sitting on a B, a solid B. It's a pass. It's not excellent, but it's definitely above average. And I think we're only going to get better. So, the team constantly strives. There's lots of people on the team that work more than they should. And, that's great. Obviously they all need a pat on the back. And if it wasn't for everybody involved, and that's not just including employees, and that's not just including, that's including Telegram, that's including, like I mentioned this on Telegram, somebody had an issue with the fact that, we missed a deadline for the IEO announcement. And, the fact is that we share everything. I share everything with you guys. It's pretty much like you're sitting here in the office. Anything I tell my staff, pretty much I tell you. And that means that things fluctuate, right? On Monday, we're like, all right, Wednesday, we're going to knock this out. And then Wednesday happens, we're like, shit, I think it's going to be Friday. And I never heard an employee come back and say, you lied to us about the deadline. That's because, things are fluid, things happen. And so I like to be transparent. I could be less transparent and just not say anything. I don't really see the value in that. I see the value in that Telegram group and in this AMA that you have access to the same information that everybody internally has. And that with that information, you are up to the minute. Now, that minute may change next week, but you know exactly what we know. And I think that's valuable. Some people may think it's not, but I think it is. On a lighter note, in response to previous T-shirt requests, apparel family store, any flat cap CM logo would stick on a flat cap. Well, substantially stored. Not substantially. No, actually, the original T-shirt I just made like 20 of them for myself. Now I think I have about 60. or something like that. And then we made some for the office, but I think we only have 2 or 3 of those hanging around now. So no, not substantially sourced. They will be in the future, I think, but for now, no. But we have a local place that can print some out. So, if need be, we can get them done. Decided on any marketing head yet? Bjorn? No, not yet. We just found a good copywriter. So that we think we sent out an offer on that one. But in terms of head of marketing, not yet. Still looking. Back to Reddit here. Brian Ortega. Hi, Kevin. Is there any limitations on margin posting? I mean, if someone who has a lot of XCM, like 100K or 400K, can post everything, do you think, based on your experience, when margin posting go live, will be enough request for that? I mean, with low volume, there will not be many takers for margin posting. What are the statistics for margin trading? How much users use it? Will be also any other options that earn money with CoinMetro? Also looking forward to see these pink nails. Good on keyboard. Okay. Pink nails. Yeah. 5 cents. Yeah, we did have a couple of AMAs where we were through 5 cents and I missed it. But when we get back there, pink nails with glitter, as proposed, I think, by somebody proposed that. I don't know who it was. So back to the question. So no, there won't be a limitation. You'll be able to post what you want to post. And yes, with lower volume, obviously not all of it might get sucked up. But the more platforms we add, the more users we get, the more the systems are used. So yeah, at first, there'll be a lot of offers out there that aren't taken. That's true. But over time, those offers will start to be accepted. Statistics on margin trading is one of the most used platforms. I don't have the statistics sitting in front of me, but I had been looking at them a couple of days back. So it is one of the most used platforms, right behind actually the trade platform and the simple platform. So simple and trade are also picking up in users. The intermediate platform has the least amount of users. That's why it's getting kind of reorganized and merged with that's not getting merged with anything. It's getting redone. And then we're going to merge pro and trade and margin to create a pro platform. Any other ways? Yeah, so we will be coming out with other ways to passively earn income, as I just mentioned. That's not going to happen, though, until TRAM and margin posting are out, but it'll happen shortly thereafter. But it'll be a way for you to easily be able to have like reoccurring buys coming in, like subscription payments into several different options, and then you'll be able to make some passive income on that sum as well. Any insights on how many ICO contributors never claim their XCM? This is from Nick Singh. No, actually, I think the majority, claimed is a hard word to define. A majority have, I think all actually have, almost, if not all, very close to all have their XCM inside of a wallet in CoinMetro. The amount that have withdrawn it is quite small. The amount of contributors that have actively traded, there's also a percentage gap there as well. So there probably is some that's on deposit that the person just has forgotten about, that's for sure. But I don't have numbers on that, at least off the top of my head. And I don't think it would affect supply too much. In one of the previous AMAs, you guessed that API could increase revenue up to 5 times with TRAM in the making. Still valid? Yes. Yes, 100%. And it was always about TRAM because most of the algos that are going to use that API will probably end up using TRAM as well because it'll allow them to trade with more money than they actually have on their own account. So yes, in one previous AMA, you guessed that API would increase. Okay, sorry. Will everybody be able to become a TRAM manager? Anybody will be able to open a TRAM, yes. However, leaderboards and things like that will be only there for TRAMs that have passed a certain amount of prerequisites. Any numbers on how many coins you plan to list in 2019? Nope, no numbers. Once we get through the fact that we have this self-assessment guideline from our bank, from our banking partner, then it will definitely happen at a quicker rate. We're not going to list everything just to list everything. We like to list things that we like. Not necessarily, when I say like, I mean that that either they fit a certain business metric, meaning there's no euro on and off ramps, the volume is decent, meaning there may be only 1 euro on and off ramp, or there's none, or there's nowhere that it's traded, that it's actually utility token in nature, at least for now. So there's business metrics, and then there's things that, look, we think this is a cool product, and yeah, it's already listed elsewhere or whatever, but we'd like to list it here because we think that there's a probability we can get some users. And of course, when we can do any type of business development with those companies, it definitely pushes us in that direction as well. So I don't know, but it would once we do have that self-assessment guideline, we will list more than we've listed up to this point, given the slower response from the banking partner. Any plans to make IOTA tradable on CoinMetro? IOTA is on the list. I don't know where it sits on the list, but yes, there are plans. What does a copywriter do? Write blog posts? Copywriter writes. They write emails. They write blog posts. They write, internal text on the website. They write. They write basically. They write copy. So they write commercial content. Sign some and flog them off to the exchange. Have you got YouTube adverts going yet, even localized? Not yet, no, because, well, that's the one thing we've always fought with, right? Budget. So once we do get this MOU through the books and we start to get that capital in, one thing that we're going to increment, obviously, is our marketing budget, and YouTube will definitely probably be part of that. Not sure if this was mentioned earlier. What are your views on the news that countries are planning to issue their cryptocurrency? I mentioned probably a year ago now that we will see sovereign countries issue their fiat currencies on a blockchain. I suspected that it was actually going to be a Commonwealth country that did it first, and I think I said Canada or Australia. So I guess if China does it first, I would have been wrong on that point. But China's doing it for a whole slew of different reasons. They just want to track their citizens. I mean, they already do facial recognitions on the street. Now they're going to know exactly what and where they buy, when they buy it, how they spend it, where they move their money. It is not for virtue. It's not because they want to help people. It's not because they believe in crypto. It has nothing to do with that. It's just another way for them to spy on their people. It's a spy coin. I do think, though, that there is merit, and eventually, look, most currency in the world already is digital. When you send a wire transfer, when you use a credit card, when you use a debit card, when you make a payment over SEPA, faster payments in the UK, ACH in the US, whatever, you are making a digital transfer of money in a digital form. So it's not a big step, and it will happen. Every country in the world will eventually issue currency on a blockchain, 100%. Now, or a digital ledger technology, I shouldn't say a blockchain, but digital ledger technologies will take over. It just makes sense from their perspective because they have the ability then to track better. And the minute that we get rid of cash, because obviously that's the goal here, is one day to have no cash, then it's 100%. We no matter what, we're in 100% in control of the government. And that's what they want for many reasons. Some of those good reasons and some of those not so good reasons. Are there any plans to create tax reports directly with CM instead of using some third-party service? Not really. And the reason why we probably wouldn't do that is the reason why probably nobody does that, in the fact that there's 180, 100, 200 and what, 12, I forget how many countries are in the world. And every single one of them, for the most part, has slight differences and sometimes major differences with the way they want their tax reports done. So it's just almost impossible. And those things change. We have to be on top of it. Then if we're providing a report that's no longer actually works, we may be liable, especially if someone pulls it off and says, oh, CoinMetro said this was the information you needed. We don't really want to go down that road. But having better exportable reports so that you can more easily follow your local taxes is definitely something we will do. How is integration of new currencies going along? Integration hasn't started yet. We're still waiting on APIs. But the finalization on the provider side to make sure that everything's ready has been ongoing. And we're very close to having it being done. I'm told beginning of September, we will then move those IBANs that we currently have situated in Liechtenstein or Luxembourg, sorry, one or the other, to the UK, which will reduce the fees from a percentage fee down to a fixed fee. And that's really something I've been waiting on. So I think sometime in September, we're going to see some movement there. From our side, integration really won't be all that cumbersome. It's really, but we don't even have the APIs yet, so I've been waiting on those. Will the national cryptocurrency totally replace the fiat currency? If not, there will be two types of currency. And is this a way to get around the USD reserve currency? Well, USD as a reserve is there for many reasons. People have been talking about getting the USD out of that reserve spot since it was added to the reserve spot, which I believe was the 70s. That's 50 years ago. That's a long time to be the reserve currency. It's not that easy just to let it go either. So every time you see in the news that, oh, Russia's buying oil from Iran using euros, well, who cares? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what they use to buy it. When it gets cleared in USD. So it's still going to take time to do that. When you talk about two currencies, eventually, I don't think we will have paper currency. There is very little reason to have paper currency if you have an underlying ecosystem where it's not needed. It's still needed in many parts of the world, including including the first world countries, because many businesses don't accept any other form of payment. When you're in small towns or whatever, cash is king. No one takes credit cards. That still happens. Now, imagine right now, most of your currency is already digital. It's not who cares what the underlying, do you know how, MasterCard actually clears payments over the MasterCard network? Do you care? Do you go to the merchant and like, look, when you take my MasterCard, what exactly is going to happen? How long is it going to take for it to clear? Do you get your money right away? Does it take 30 or 40 minutes? What's the block time for MasterCard? Nobody gives a shit about any of that stuff. They just make the payment and they go. So the point is that when it happens, it will take time, but eventually, once what this does is when you talk about MasterCard and Visa, that means you have to be hooked up to a bank. You have to have to take crypto at a business or some type of currency that's built into a blockchain or a DLT. You only need like a cell phone and a wallet. Everybody has those. Homeless people have cell phones. Everybody has a cell phone. So at the end of the day, it means that the proliferation of digital payments, once that happens, will be much easier. And then at some point, there's no cash. But for some time, sure, there will be both. But there's no difference then. The USD on the blockchain is still USD, just like the paper USD is. Doesn't make any difference. What are your thoughts on the Mystic Tulip Fund? I actually have to look that one up. I think I know what it is, but let's see. Yeah, Tulip Fund. Okay, let's see. Somebody want to post to me why this is relevant? Let's see. Headquartered, blah blah blah. Interest in China. So it's basically Chinese money infiltrating the rest of the world. Is that what we're talking about here? Let me know, Harold, and I'll answer you. Just on USD as the reserve currency, there is a muttering and whispers of a global reset in play, or is it just water cooler bullshit? That reset has been talked about since, right after the USD became the reserve currency. Every 10, 15, or 20 years or so, there's always this discussion that the USD is going to fail and that, blah, blah, then, but it's not bullshit. It will fail one day. That's for sure. Just like Bitcoin will have a higher price one day. The question is when. And there's been major movements, sure, but there's a lot more movements that need to be made for that to actually take place. So the bigger question is when. I don't think it's going to happen soon. Let's put it that way. It's the fund of Craig Wright. Okay. So it's another Tulip fund, because there's a Tulip fund that actually, anyway, sovereign Chinese wealth. Well, the question. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't even think he owns those Bitcoins, so I don't think he has access to them. So I think he can't give up shit. The question is, I do think Craig Wright knows who Satoshi was. I think Satoshi's dead or in jail or otherwise not able to come out in the open. But it's not Craig Wright, and I don't think Craig Wright has access. So I don't think he can do anything. No, I don't think he has it. Someone with 1.1 million BTC. The wealth that would be in terms of euro value, USD value, wouldn't be walking around like the bitch like Craig Wright is. I mean, Craig Wright is a bitch, and he says ridiculous things. He's in the public all the time. A person wouldn't be doing that, and they wouldn't care if people knew that they were Satoshi. Yeah, we will find out. I would say no, he has no access. All right, guys. So we've gotten through Reddit, so that's awesome. I think. Let me see here. Yeah. So Reddit's done. We're nearing up on the top of the hour here. Actually, I have a meeting with the Parsec boys. Well, one of the Parsec boys here at 4:00. So, any of you guys want to ask Parsec any questions? I could bring them in. Let me know. But yeah. So. When IEO, yeah. Guys. Look, September. That's what I'll tell you. It's just about waiting on a bit more information from our banking partner. We don't want to step on any toes. That's it. But it will happen in September. So get ready, and you will see some information come out as soon as we can release it. All right, guys. So have a good weekend. As I always say, spend time with friends and family. Don't look at prices. Buy some XCM. And see you guys next week. on that note, I'll see you guys in Telegram hopefully over the weekend. Tag me if you have a question, just have a comment, or just feel like trolling a bit, and I'll respond to you. And yeah, guys, see you next week. Cheers. Thanks everybody for the participation. Appreciate it as usual. And check you guys out next week.